poquito más.
Live tonight from the virtual Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 4 of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. We're happy, as always, that you're spending your Monday night with us here on RaceSpotTV, or alongside our producer downstairs, our Junior Kenki Potty, and Joshua Lee, myself, Evan Pasoka. Josh, happy to have you along for the ride with us tonight for the one and only road course race on this 10-week championship. Last year, it was Montreal. This year, we returned to Mid-Ohio, a bit of a different challenge for these drivers that I can promise you a lot of guys really aren't looking forward to. This is a really tricky and disciplined racetrack.
A lot different from the F1 track of Montreal. This is more of a Grand Am, more of an IndyCar track, but still just as difficult in its own right. A lot of hard braking zones, a lot of off-camera corners as we go through the S's in the middle portion of the lap here at Mid-Ohio. Then a bit of a long straightaway into another off-camera corner, and you finish the lap. It's not a lot of on-throttle time, a lot of on-brake time getting slowed down for each of these corners. One long straightaway, everything else is either short straightaways or no straightaways. So these drivers are going to have a bit of a challenge on their hands as they go through this race. And for 50 laps as well, they got to be focused.
And going to be, as well, very minimal runoff opportunities, so it's going to be very disciplined tonight on track. We take a look at the calendar. Tonight, round number 4, the 4th different discipline of racetrack that we're racing on. We went to a super speedway. We've been to a 2-mile oval. We've been to a short track. Now tonight, we go to a road course ahead of our first intermediate track next week. So even though there's only 10 races in this 2022 championship, the diversity of the schedule is going to test these drivers on the road to that title fight on every single different kind of track you can think of. But the storyline into tonight has been Andrew Freenash. He has got one race win on the season, but his championship lead has been growing, Josh, and that is the topic of conversation. 21 points ahead of Kyle Trudell. Really second on back as a tight fight. Trudell, Cato, Lariah, Silver, all within 9 points of each other, but Freenash has been very, very good, including that race win in the season opener at Daytona. I'm not going to say that 21 is comfortable. We still have, if you count tonight, 7 races left. There is a long way to go. But given Freenosh's history in this series, I have to think these guys are starting to get nervous when he gets to a double-digit point lead, and would think that if that continues to increase, they're quickly going to run out of options.
And the points look like the last 4 years in the main series with Andrew Freenosh up at the front. But yeah, Evan, he's only above by 21, which it's still a 1-race gap when you think about it in the points. If he finishes down at the bottom of the order here today and Kyle Trudell finishes up front, or I'd even go as far to say Ross Cato finishing up front, he has an opportunity to lose that points lead. So he's not safe, but 21 points is a substantial amount to where if he doesn't wreck out, but maybe has a bad pit stop and maybe falls back outside of the top 10, he can still climb himself back up after a bad performance.
It is true, and of course something else to be watching is the team championship standings. The top 3 drivers from each team will score points, and so far the 3 teams that have gotten the maximum amount of points are first, second, and third. Keeping It Real Esports holds a 35-point advantage to Flat Out Motorsports. They are 14 points further ahead from Extreme Performance Motorsports with 215. XPM just added a couple of new drivers to their roster who will be making their 2022 Winter Series debuts here this afternoon. So that is something to watch as well. Let's talk about this Mid-Ohio sports car course, though. It is a pretty long one, but, you know, in comparison to what we saw at Montreal, Josh, you mentioned it, very different. Montreal's a very flat racetrack, heavy braking zones, heavy acceleration zones. There's a lot of rhythmic sections here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. It is a track that tends to be known for NASCAR Xfinity Series racing, right? That's been on the calendar for some years, but to be honest, I don't know if a lot of drivers have a ton of experience on the sim in these cars at this track, so maybe it scared a couple of drivers away tonight, and it'll be interesting to see how many drivers who aren't those road guys can maximize tonight, right? Limit mistakes and just try to survive with points, and how big of a conversation the road course ringers may be. I bring that up because Matt Danson won the 2021 Winter Series Championship. He's pretty good on the road courses, won a handful of them in the Cup Series last year. He has not raced in any race so far this year, Josh, in the Winter Series, but tonight he makes his debut. So he, I think, is the #1 guy to look for and could be a spoiler for some of those championship-focused guys who are going to be close to him in the top 5.
Yeah, and you still have Liam Sheen, Cody Harris, Kyle Kammer, Brandon Bowie rounding out the top 5. Andrew Freenosh, points leader, way down in P number 9. He's going to have a lot to work for as we go through the starting grid.
Good trackside, and take a look at your Sim Speed Shop starting grid tonight for round number 4 from Mid-Ohio. Matt Danson secures pole position for Logitech G Altus Esports with 1 minute 26.911. He will bring us to the green flag and will start alongside Liam Sheen. Cody Harris and Kyle Kammer will start 3rd and 4th in row number 2. Brandon Bowie and Michael Johnson, your top 6.
Starting P7 will be Jaron Weinmaster with Michael Araya, the winner from Fontana a couple of rounds ago. He sits to the outside of row 4. There's Andrew Freenosh, points leader in P9. Brandon 6 is going to round out the top 10 starting spots with Sam Nieto and Kevin King going to round out the first 6 rows.
Another driver in his debut tonight for the team. He's ahead of Braden Whitaker, who starts 13th, and Tim Johnston in 14th. Chris Ravel and Ross Cato will double up for row number 8. They're ahead of Alexander Russell, another driver making his first start of the season. He's alongside Nick Silver in 18th.
And that'll be William Schmidt starting P19 with Anthony DeBarro to his outside in P20. Brian Chambliss with Sean Casto on row 11. Joshua Ball, Trevin Valderrama. We're going to round out the top 24 spots.
2 more cars put down in time in qualifying. It'll line up James Ross and Dylan Parker through the number 26th spot. and a couple of provisionals will line up Trudell, Kaczynski, and Edwards through the back of the grid. That's a look top to bottom at your SimSpeed Shop starting grid. SimSpeed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 RealSimRacing SimSpeed Shop Winter Series. So we'll do a slow roll behind the iRacing.com pace car rolling start 2x2 here at Mid-Ohio. It's always important to note, Josh, in these RSR road races, no yellows, no matter what. So you got to make sure you get through the start clean, and I think these opening 5 laps may set the tone.
And this track reminds me a lot of Sonoma. Very difficult to get the power down. They're going to be spinning tires a lot. We will have to make a pit stop in this race. Let's see how it affects these drivers.
Pace car's off and away as we say, let's go. Road course racing in Mid-Ohio. Green flag in the air, and Danson leads into turn number 1, the left-hander. Behind him in second. Sheen maintains second. Harris is third. No shocks now as they go to a heavy braking zone. An opportunity down and into turn number 3 and 4, that part of the racetrack, for drivers to make a look. They all maintain, and up front we single file out for a run down the rolling start line in turn 5.
Kyle Kammer in the back in P5 right now. He was looking to make a dive going into the keyhole of turn number 2. He's able to not make contact with Jaron Weinmaster in front of him. He'll stay P5, but Kammer's not done. He takes another brave peek to the inside. He's not diving it up too aggressively, but look for the 8 machine, Evan. I think he's going to really be mixing it up here at the front. We're already seeing a little bit of aggression, but it's not to the point where he's taking out other drivers. He's thinking against doing these moves before they even get to the start of the corner.
These drivers need to be smart about this, right? I mean, you have to figure 50-lap race. It's going to be a pretty long one. This one's going to come in somewhere in the 75-minute range on the stopwatch. Again, with those yellows not interfering, we have a pretty good idea of what the race pace is going to be. You do need to be disciplined, and you do need to make sure your car gets all the way to the end of this race. Talking about championship battles and whatnot, it's important to note that Brandon Bowie, Josh, missed the starting grid in this race. He is way out back in the 34 Toyota. Bowie entered tonight 7th in the championship, but a week ago, he was top 3. So a couple of bad bits of luck for Brandon Bowie continue here tonight, and he is way on the back foot of a championship battle that he used to be a big part of, as we watch Cody Harris follow Liam Sheen for second. Danson doing his best to get a little bit of space as the race leader.
Yeah, nobody really mixing it up here at the front yet. Jaron Weinmaster was able to make up 3 spots from where he started P7 to go up into P4, but top 3 still unchanged from where they began. Danson got a great start. He's pulling away. Liam Sheen is there in second. Cody Harris is sitting in P3 and a little bit wide going through turn number 4 by China Beach was Jaron Weinmaster. As we go on board with the 39 and Michael Johnson. Battle for 4th here on the racetrack as Johnson's trying to get close. And this track, Evan, the drivers space out a little bit, but I think it's a bit of a product of what we're seeing here. These tight corners, these tight braking zones, not a lot of straightaways. It keeps a lot of cars together. And while we see them spacing out a little bit, take a look at how close together a lot of these drivers are from roughly about 4th on back. Kammer's still on the back bumper of Weinmaster. You look at Michael Johnson, he's on the back bumper of Kammer. Farinars is sitting now P7. He's on the back bumper of Michael Johnson. So everybody's staying close together up at the front, except for, of course, Matt Danson. Clean air for the number 05. He's pulling away at the front.
Here's the onboard look with your championship leader, Andrew Friedosh. He is up 2 positions from the start of this race into 7th. And I think Kammer got into Weinmaster the littlest of bits there when they were in turn 12 of the carousel that is kind of stacking all of this up, right? I think the racetrack, you're right, is a reason why these drivers are so on top of each other. I think Kammer, Johnson, maybe a tad better than Weinmaster early in this race, but pacing is going to be critical as well. As that is a mistake from James Ross. He goes off and into the tires, so that's an issue for the number 14 machine. And then Alexander Russell, I mentioned, making his debut start as well, having some issues after the green flag. Russell's, I believe, was before the green flag. So that goes into the conversation. That's why I mentioned no runoffs, Josh, because at a place like a Montreal, right, a place that's designed for Formula One racing, especially modern day F1 racing, right, there's so much runoff. I mean, if you were anywhere near racing Twitter the last week, runoffs and sand traps and gravel have been, you know, kind of the big conversation. This racetrack doesn't have any of that. I mean, you make a little mistake like that, even under pace speed for Ross, you're into the tires. So really no opportunity to make a mistake as you see the number 39, Machida Michael Johnson making the move there, trying to hold off Andrew Freenosh as the battle for 6 and 7 continues.
You're absolutely right about the runoff areas, Evan, because really the only runoff areas these drivers have is those yellow curbs that are on the outside of the racetrack. Everything else is grass, and these slick tires, not exactly the best for running on grass, so you want to keep it on the gray stuff, and a lot of the drivers doing a great job of that so far, but it goes to show just another challenge of this racetrack. They cannot push the track limits. You put one tire into the grass, you're going to be sucked in and end up like many a NASCAR Xfinity Series drivers stuck in the sand of China Beach that they're heading up to right now. So you need to make sure you're keeping it within those track limits, but also trying to get the maximum out of the car, because if you can do both of those, maximize the track limits without going off and maximize what your car is able to do, you're going to be very fast here at Mid-Ohio as we go further back in the field on board with Ross Cato, sitting currently in P number 15. And take a look at that, Evan. We got the foot cam as we take a look at him working around Mid-Ohio.
Well, that's the challenge of road racing, is you're using both feet a lot more than you do at some of the bigger oval racetracks. And let's look at Ross. Looks like just some normal tennis shoes on. Some drivers will opt to go for the racing boot, right? I mean, drivers will get that for the sim. I have always been a fan of racing with just socks. I can't do the shoe, right? I mean, a racing shoe is made so you can kind of feel the pedal underneath you, Josh, a lot better than a normal shoe, as we see Mike Kaczynski off track. He was running in 27th. So a tough break for the 30 car on a self-inflicted error. Let's see what happened with him. But where do you fall in that battle of socks versus shoes?
I fall in the third category of no socks, no shoes on.
Okay.
Completely barefoot. I don't. Socks. I feel like they're slipping off my pedals. Shoes are just weird. So as we see Mike Kaczynski just completely missing through that turn 4 braking marker and ended up, like I was saying, stuck in China Beach. Luckily, he was able to keep those revs up. He dug himself out of the sand. But yeah, barefoot sim racing for me.
We'll pick up the battle up towards the front. Cody Harrison third. You mentioned China Beach. That was the right-hander in 4. That's the left-hander 5. They go down the hill. Right-hander for turn number 6. This is the S's part of the racetrack. Under the Honda Bridge, left-hander turn 7. This is the jump right there, which clocks in as turn 8. Right-hander down here. Turn number 9 is Thunder Valley. And then they'll go down the back half of the racetrack. High speed through the gears. Right-hand kink is turn 10. That's the chute. Left-hand kink is turn number 11. He keeps good pace, and then, of course, we get down to the last spot on the racetrack with the right-hander, turn number 12 of the carousel, and that final left-hand kink right there as they straighten back to the front stretch. That is turn number 13, and that is a trip around this 2.25-mile road course, known as Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. I think it's a very fun track, and no matter what vehicle you put these guys in, certainly a challenge in these big and bulky stock cars. Starting to see some separation throughout the field. Danson has led all 5 laps that have been completed thus far, and again, there really shouldn't be any shock there, Josh. And I know I mentioned it briefly on the grid. Danson not competing full-time for a title this season in the Winter Series. Last year, different story. We talk about how he raced at Montreal. Danson won that race, led 21 of the laps, just besting Andrew Freenosh, who led 19. That race came down to strategy, and I know it's a little early to start talking about that now, but in these road races where there's guaranteed to be no yellows, they are often decided by pit strategy.
And we're going to see a bit of that pit strategy coming up. We're still only about a third of the way through this run, but we're going to start to see drivers start to trickle their way into the pit lane, probably around lap number 25, even though they can stretch that fuel to about 31 to 33 laps. So they can either stretch the fuel tanks that far and have fresher tires coming to the end, or they can essentially just split the race in half, pit on lap 25, and they essentially have the exact same strategy as they did for the first half of the race as the last half of the race. We'll have to see who takes what strategy and how exactly it is going to work, or if we see an alternate third strategy where right as they hit about 32 laps to go, we see a couple of drivers trickle in and do the long run strategy to the end. So really we're going to see either a short run, a mid run, or a long run strategy coming to that checkered flag, and basically anybody's guess at which strategy is going to win, because like you mentioned earlier, Evan, 0 cautions we will see here today. It'll only be locally enforced cautions, so no safety car coming out onto the racetrack here, and we'll see which strategy is going to work, because they will not have the field bunched back up. The only way these drivers can make up time if it's not on a live racetrack is in the pit lane.
And talking about drivers with issues, I mentioned the problems that Brandon Bowie had on the grid, and another driver who missed the starting grid was Kyle Trudell. That's big because Trudell has had very good runs here in the past. He finished second to Andrew Freenosh when Freenosh won this race back in December of 2019. However, the big thing for Kyle Trudell tonight is Kyle came into tonight second in the championship, 21 points back off of Freenosh. Josh, he is running 28th on the racetrack right now, only ahead of Sean Casto, who has disconnected with a connection issue. So when Freenosh finally doesn't have a picture-perfect night so far, right? He can still gain, but Andrew Freenosh at a P7, I would consider an opportunity for these other drivers. You got Trudell in 28th. You got Cato, who entered tonight third in the championship, way down in 15th position. So this may have been the opportunity for guys to make up something on Freenosh, and it has not been great for the two drivers closest to him in the points so far in the opening 10 laps.
May not be a great night so far for Andrew Freenosh, but it's going to be a bit of a lucky one, as Cato, like you mentioned, in 15th, and Trudell about to be put one lap down by Matt Danson. Trudell's lap times aren't even there. A 129.1 last time he came across the start-finish line. The number 05 of Matt Danson is about to put him one lap down, ran a 128.6. So Trudell just missing the start, off the pace. His best lap time, a 128.8, is about a second off of Liam Sheen and Matt Danson, who both of their best lap times of the race are in the 127s. So, bad night for Kyle Trudell. Ross Cato's night can still go the other way, and he can start climbing his way back up. Andrew Freenosh can really only go up from here, sitting in P7 unless he makes a mistake. So, it's going to be an interesting word on the points, but I will say, for a couple of drivers, they might need to start thinking about those points. How about Liam Sheen, who sits in P6 in the points? Running in second place, he might put himself into the championship conversation with this race. He's not going to take the points lead, probably won't even etch himself that far into the top 5, but he'll get himself into the conversation as we go into the over halfway in the season.
Yeah, I think the big thing for him is looking at the points. You're right. I mean, it's a 1-point increment per position from second position all the way down till you get into the high 30s, right? But the biggest difference on points is race win versus second place. Now, this is just a 10-race championship. Unlike the Cup Series, there's no win and you're in. There's no bonuses for wins. But the big thing is the race winner gets 40 points compared to second place getting 35. So that's a big opportunity, Josh, for him to get points. He's hanging with Danson. So I think Liam Sheen has an opportunity to win this race. You see Weinmaster, Kamer, Johnson all over each other with the battle we're watching now for 4th. So there's tons up for grabs. But I think that clearly Danson and Sheen are the best cars in the field. So I wonder if Liam Sheen, I think he thinks he could win the race right now. I agree. I think he could, compete with Danson. He's only a half a second off. But I wonder if he thinks at some point, listen, do I need to stay out at some point on a pit cycle, Josh, to get a bonus point, right? even if it may slightly hurt my chances for the race win, would that one extra bonus point for leading a lap help me down the line? Because, listen, if you're trying to take a championship from Andrew Friedosh, the only driver who's been able to do that in the last 3.5 years of RSR competition was Danson in this Winter Series last year, you need every single point. So I'm just curious if drivers really think that it's that important to get a single point, and if bonus points will become a topic of conversation later. Right now, Danson's got all of them. As you see the 6 car off track a little bit down the road, that is Josh Ball. He was in 21st position, and I think he's able to maintain some 30 seconds off of the race leader.
We'll grab a look at that replay here, but on the topic of Liam Sheen maybe wanting a bonus point, is there's the 6 running off track of Joshua Ball. He's coming through the final sector on the racetrack. Looks like a bit of an issue for Alexander Russell again on the racetrack, and he's going to overcook it. I believe that is going into the carousel at turn 12. Yes, it is. So another overcooked corner for the 57 of Alexander Russell. But back to the topic of Liam Sheen and the bonus points. Really, all Liam Sheen would need to do is pit 1 lap later than Matt Danson. He's in a position right now where he runs in P2, only some odd 6/10 off of the current race leader, Matt Danson. He only needs to just pit 1 lap later, because he'll pass Matt Danson before they get to the start-finish line. So if he's willing to do that, if he has the points in the back of his mind, he might. If he's not thinking about the points, he might just pit with Matt Danson, or try and go in a completely alternate strategy with Matt Danson to hopefully try and keep up with him at least. Because like you mentioned, Evan, if he thinks that he has the car to beat, he just wants to stay close to Matt Danson within striking distance.
Of course, Liam Sheen, no driver that is, not accustomed to victory lane here. He won the Cup Series race at Watkins Glen last year. That race win put him in to the playoffs. Notably, Danson was suspended for that race, unable to compete. They did later compete against each other in the Cup Series at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Sheen finished 7th in that race. Danson went on to win. But I think this has been a fun battle, especially amongst the drivers, that Danson and Sheen are the best of the road course drivers at this moment in Real Sim Racing, and they are having a great battle up front. Again, some 10 laps complete in this race, and they are separated still by less than a second. You're talking about tire fall off of already in the 1.5 second range per lap, fastest laps earlier versus what they're doing now. So if that gap stays sub 1 second, again, I think strategy could be a big part of this race. Now, I've always been a fan of the undercut, but again, that's where Sheen has to ask that question. Am I going to go all out for the race win? Do I maybe stay out that 1 extra lap to secure a bonus point? And there's Alexander Russell having a problem again and just keeping it out of the tires. So he's mowing the lawn here at Mid-Ohio, but he's done a good job of recovering to get Alexander Russell making his first start of the season. We mentioned Kevin King is making his first start of the season as well, Josh. He's at 11th position. Kevin King, a longtime vet on the iRacing service. Listen, it's tricky to move from the waitlist to the active roster for a road race, right? Because you didn't know when you were going to be able to start. You haven't had a lot of opportunity to practice. So those guys certainly thrown into the fire here this afternoon.
And take a look at Andrew Friedosh trying to work his way back up through the field. He's been rather stagnant in P7. Started in P9, so he already is a gain of 2 spots from where he began the night, but has stayed in P7. But look how close he is to Michael Johnson in front of him, the 39. He got close to Kyle Kamer as well, who currently sits in P5. Jaron Weinmaster is the lead of this group, as Friedosh is going to overcook turn 4 just a little bit. He's able to reel that car back in for turn 5. Careful on the throttle going through the downhill. Not a lot of grip going through that section. Not a lot of grip going through here either, as they go a little off camber and back down a small hill, and they'll go down a large hill right here as they go through turn number 9 and leave the S's into Thunder Alley. Friedosh losing a little bit of time. Kyle Kamer is going to get a little bit closer to Jaron Weinmaster in front of him, and Michael Johnson's not done in this battle as well, but you can see a lot of drivers on a lot of these turns either overcooking or undercooking it, and here comes Kyle Kamer to the inside of Weinmaster. It's close, almost a door slam, but through the final corner, the 8's going to get loose again. Almost door slams once more as they go back into turn number 1, but the advantage is to Weinmaster and the Supra on the inside.
It was good timing for Winemaster to go back to the inside in turn 13. That gave him the run down the front stretch, and he successfully defends for fourth. Now here comes Johnson. He'll go to the outside in the keyhole. The right-hander, turn number 2. Maybe looking for a crossover, but he may have opened up the door for Freenash in single file out. And again, I'm not suggesting that Winemaster is slow, but I think he's a little bit slower than the cars behind him, Josh. That's why you're seeing 5 cars stacked up. Make it 7 if you want to go back 2 seconds. Kamer, Johnson, Freenash, 6, Lariah, all within striking distance of Jaron Winemaster, who continues to defend a 4th position. He moved up to 4th pretty quickly in this race after starting down in 7th. But he's going to have to work for it to hold these guys off. They are all over him. This battle is some 7 seconds off of the race lead, as you see the intervals on the left-hand side.
Yeah, he is just a little bit slower by about 0.6, as you can see on the timing tower, but nobody able to make a pass, either because they're not really thinking about the pass right now. They're kind of waiting for pit stops to come on, but here comes Kyle Kamer with another look to the inside, or don't have a lot of passing opportunities, because we mentioned how many hard braking zones there are, and normally a hard braking zone equals a passing zone, but that's not really true here at Mid-Ohio, because we don't have a lot of long straightaways leading into the braking zones. They really just kind of flow together, and you don't have a lot of opportunity to try and get to the left or the right side of the driver in front of you, unless you're coming off of one of these long straightaways. This will be an opportunity for Kamer to try and get around Johnson again as they go into turn number 4, but the driver's back behind Kamer. Johnson, Farina are 6 and more. They need to be very, very smart on when they want to make the move on the driver in front, because going into the hard braking zones and going through these slow corners, trying to pass one car is going to be very, very difficult, because you're going to immediately have the car in front of him, in front of you, and there's not going to be a lot of space to make that move work.
Working lap number 14 of 50 in this Sim Speed Shop 50 for the virtual Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. It's round number 4 of 10 on the 2022 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. Checking in on the battle for 12th position. Rabel has got his own little pack, very similar to what we're seeing behind Jaron Winemaster further up the road. Tim Johnston's in there, Braden Whitaker, Ross Cato, Nick Silver, and William Schmidt, all stacked up in a row. Make it a 6-car pack battling in the midfield, and you look onto board with Cato again. Big chance for him tonight in the championship. Enters 3rd. He is running behind Freenash, who is up in 7th. But due to the issues Kyle Trudell had missing the start, Trudell's a lap down in 26th. He is, I think, right now posed to take over 2nd in the championship if these results were to hold.
And even with Trudell's problems, he's still running pretty good lap times. Not on par with the race leaders, but if Chris Edwards runs into a bit of trouble, he might be able to grab a couple of spots there as we continue to look on board with Ross Cato. Cato has not moved from P15, still on the back bumper of Braden Whitaker, as we got a great look at the footwork that Ross Cato is putting in that number 12 machine. And take a look at this line of drivers as they race through the kink of turn number 3 down into turn 4. And Whitaker going to get very close to Tim Johnston in front of him, and this is another one of those long lines, Evan, that's starting to form around a possibly slower car. The 29 of Chris Rabel leads it with Tim Johnston, Braden Whitaker, Ross Cato, Nick Silver, and it looks like William Schmidt ends out the line. So from roughly about P12 down into P17, all running in this tight group.
And so far, everybody but Sean Casto is still actively on the racetrack. Valderrama and Kaczynski are both on pit road at the moment and apparently out of their race cars, but they have not retired. And what you mentioned, if Chris Edwards had some issues, it could be a spot for Trudell. There it is. Edwards goes off the racetrack, and since then, Kyle Trudell has passed him. So move Trudell up to 25th. That is another point in his favor. Still probably in 25th spot. You got Cato up into 15th, and probably as they run about 5 points behind him. Cato taking over second in the championship by 5 points as they run, but Trudell likely with an opportunity to pick up spots. Cato can still make up spots, but he's in the middle of that big pack of cars. So he has just as likely a chance of losing more spots as he does to gain them. And that's part of battling in a pack like that, as you see Kyle Kamer still trying to get around Winemaster. Here, looking off at the back end of the number 48 machine Winemaster. His Toyota Supra sits in 4th position. You have to wonder how that patience is doing for Trudell. I did mention off of the, or Kamer I should say, Josh, I did mention early in the race, you do need some patience to get through a 75-minute race, right? Without yellows, no brakes, you got to pace yourself, but I mean, I think Kamer pretty confident he's the better car. At some point, does he get more aggressive? I mean, you can see the front end damage. He's definitely got in to Winemaster before. Or does this affect your strategy and you maybe change when you're going to come down to the pit lane to try to just get away from the 48 car?
I think I would try and make the move as early as I can. I don't think I want to be behind Winemaster when they begin the round of green flag pit stops, but Winemaster, even though he was slower, has picked up the pace since the last time we checked in on this battle. 130.419 last lap from the 48, a 130.428 from the number 8 machine last time by. The Winemaster has gotten a little bit faster, albeit by a couple of hundredths, but that's really all that he needs to stay in front of the 8 of Kyle Kamer. He cannot get close enough through these hard braking zones, and you can see he's looking to the inside. He's trying to find any possible way around that he can. Nothing is coming to fruition, and now Kamer's going to have Michael Johnson behind him. Andrew Farinage is there as well. Nobody too eager to get aggressive, I think, is the thing we're learning through as we get into the middle portion of this race, Evan. Just a lot of drivers are buying their time, keeping the patience. They don't want to go so aggressive to lead to contact because they know they have to go 50 laps as Winemaster gets very loose, working his way through turn 11. Give P4 to Kyle Kamer.
And that is what the constant pressure will do, is force you into a mistake. Winemaster just lost the back end into the corner and had to auto-correct that by turning to the right to catch that car, counter steer, and it was a very good recovery. Didn't go into the grass, didn't hit anything, but it opened up the door just enough for Kyle Kamer to get through. And now more issues for Edwards towards the rear. The 72 car struggling tonight with a handful of errors. That one will be a self-inflicted error. It's going to happen on the throttle. Car gets light coming over the crest of the hill, and he noses into the tire barriers. Relatively minor damage for him. Anthony DeBarro a little bit further on the back as well, missing the corner. If that was all paved, would it still be a mistake? Yes, but they wouldn't be able to recover much quicker. You get out into the grass, it's like walking on ice. I mean, you got to be very careful to tiptoe that thing back to safety, and all those mistakes costing the drivers we just checked in with pretty significant time. So now that Kamer's got the clean air, now we'll see how much better he really is, as he's going to try to get away from Winemaster and co. And now Michael Johnson will have the onus on him to be the next driver to try to make a challenge. Fight not going anywhere just now. It's for P5.
And Farinage is putting that pressure on the 39 here as they race for P6, and Winemaster losing that 4th spot. I would not be surprised if we now see him lose even more to Johnson, Farinage, 6 and more that sit behind him, because where they currently sit, and you can see just how much slower, and how loose Winemaster is. I think we're starting to see tire degradation start to go through a couple of these drivers, as here comes Michael Johnson to the inside. He's going to try and make easy work of Winemaster, but how about the push on the outside line for the 48? There's Chris Edwards. He gets another almost moment off the racetrack, but that's now going to start to impede this side-by-side battle as Winemaster tries to come back on Michael Johnson. They almost touched doors, and a Winemaster almost was able to get back by the 38. They'll take it 3 wide as Edwards gets pushed off. Winemaster very loose as they come through the middle sector.
Hangs it out to stay alongside number 39 of Machine, but now Johnson will have the inside. They get together. Winemaster snaps sideways. Another great save for the 48 Toyota, but this time it is costly. Johnson gets 5th. Friedosh takes 6. Even Brandon 6 jumps up to P7. And after holding him off for so long, I think Winemaster has just eaten away at those rear tires. Yeah, he lost the spots, Josh, after contact, but even before that, that car was all kinds of hung out, trying to get it onto the throttle off of the corner, and he now finds himself down in P8.
I said this track reminded me of Sonoma. Very, very low on grip. A lot of tire spin. It also reminds me of Sonoma and the fact that we do have a good bit of tire wear. As here comes Andrew Friedosh. He's going to work his way now further up through the field into P5 as he gets by Michael Johnson. Johnson will have a small side-by-side moment with this 56, excuse me, on the outside of him, and he's able to power back around and continue his way up and into the top 5. But we're starting to see, Evan, where that tire wear is coming from. And they're going to need to pit at some point. Fuel window 31 to 33 laps. So they're going to need to pit for fuel. But I think a lot of these drivers are trying to find the earliest possible window to come into pit as Winemaster gives a shot to Brandon 6. Tries to send him up the racetrack, but 6 says he's not going to have any of it as he fights back on the inside. It's going to go the way of Winemaster again as they go through a left-hander. Back over to the right. 6 is going to try and clear him. He does so by millimeters.
Oh, and Winemaster again gives a second shot to Brandon 6. And I get it from Winemaster, right? Winemaster got used up a couple of times, but it wasn't Brandon 6 who used him up. And now here comes Michael Laraya. He wants to take advantage of this. Brandon 6 is clear for 7th position. And now it's Laraya and Winemaster side by side in a battle for 8. And right there in turn 13, Winemaster gets the bottom, give him a spot. Sam Nieto also slides on through, and Jaron Winemaster has gone from a top 5 car to 10th in the matter of just 3 laps. I can imagine the frustration. Oh, look at that dive, hard on the brakes. Oh, man, he's going to use up the 2 car. Nieto getting used up as Winemaster takes it back.
Man, Sam Nieto almost getting contact with the 48, but I understand the frustration from Jaron Winemaster because look in front of him. Friedosh, Kammer, Johnson, 6, and Laraya all got past the number 48. He has lost 5 positions. I would be frustrated too. Frustrated with the tires, frustrated myself, frustrated with the other drivers if I'm losing that much time on the racetrack. But Sam Nieto is going to have his work cut out for him to try and get around the 48 because now Winemaster is getting very aggressive on the blocks and Nieto's going to get very loose coming through turn 8 in the middle of the S's. Another one of those off-camber corners showing the lack of grip when they try and get the power down on these off-camber corners. You're on board now with Sam Nieto in the 2 as he tries to chase back down the 48 of Winemaster. So close, yet so far. We'll see if he tries to lob up another one going into the keyhole.
And like I said, I get the move from Winemaster, but I don't think Nieto did anything to you, right? So now Nieto's got the green light. Winemaster moved him out of the way, used him up an awful lot when they made that high braking, the heavy braking zone down to turn number 2 for the keyhole. I mean, he rubbed the 2 car all the way up the road. So I think it's fair now for the 2 to pay him back for it, right? And I think Nieto took a swipe back there last lap in 11, got awfully close, but he got sideways. I think Nieto is going to be very aggressive if he can get back to the bumper of Winemaster and an opportunity for the battle to continue on. So watching those 2 fight it on inside of the top 10, exciting stuff. But we are waiting now for the ball to drop, per se, in the battle for strategy, because it's very clear at this point, Josh, nobody's going for the 2-stopper, right? We knew that based on the fuel number that it was likely going to be 1-stopper. Doesn't always, kind of lock everybody in. Sometimes people will drive for 2, but very clear with nobody having pitted now through 22 of 50 laps in this race that everybody's going to be coming in for a 1-stopper. There is no chance of overtime, so you don't need to save any fuel. We're inside of 30 laps to go, so the bank is open. You can come in anytime you want. Nobody's made that decision except for Dylan Parker way back in traffic. So looks like most of these drivers just kind of waiting to see what the other cars around them are going to do. And oh, Nieto! He is going to move Widemaster out of the way further on down the road. So that was the payback from the battle earlier.
And Nieto's going to take full advantage of it and pull away. First driver into the pit lane is Michael Lariah as Widemaster gets loose again. Kevin King in the 31 trying to get around him. He'll do exactly that, but Widemaster's not done into turn 2. The 48 on old tires, on worn tires, trying to keep as many positions as he can. He slides in front of Kevin King and holds on to P number 9. What a move for Widemaster. He's still gonna get aggressive. Tries to cover off the inside line, going into the left-hander of turn number 4. And here they come into 4, right by China Beach. To the inside goes the 31. He's not going to be able to get there. Widemaster holds on to P9. What a battle we're seeing at the edge of the top 10.
Kevin King, I talk about it being his RSR debut, but he is one of the vets here on the iRacing service. He is not somebody that is going to roll over if you want to be aggressive with him. And credit to Widemaster, Kevin King raced him real hard on the back half of the racetrack, gave him no space. Widemaster held it. There's the payback that I saw on a different monitor, that the 2 car just moved Widemaster out of the way in turn number 12. You see, sets it up, gasses it up, moves him out of the way. That was the payback for the contact earlier, and now Widemaster will go to pit road. So he's had enough on the tires. Widemaster's in. Michael Johnson is down pit road. So that's the second lap in a row. Cars from the top 10 have opted to pit. Your race leaders, though, still holding strong. It's Danson 1, Sheen 2, and Harris 3 still. And Danson has his biggest advantage of the race leader right now at 1.3 seconds.
I think we might see the drivers at the front, specifically Danson, specifically Sheen and Cody Harris, try and stretch this fuel window as long as they possibly can. The reason I say that is because we look at the lap times for the drivers who are just coming into the pit lane. They're running about 1 minute 33s. Last time by for Matt Danson and Liam Sheen and Cody Harris, and you can go as far down as Andrew Farinage, they've been running about 1 minute 30s on the timing sheet. So they have not lost as much time on these tires. They have taken care of them a lot better than the drivers we're seeing pit early. So I think what's going to bring Danson and Sheen, and as I say that, Danson does the exact opposite of what I'm saying. He's coming into the pit lane.
I think it may have been a missed opportunity for Liam Sheen to have not pitted the last lap, right? I think an undercut may have been a good opportunity just to mix things up. But Danson, as the leader, pits right when you would think he would, and that is at the halfway point. Is Brandon 6 with a big slide off and into the gravel, keeps it out of the fence, but does lose a position. I know he was at least in 7th at one spot. He's down in 8th. Let's see the onboard perspective. Yeah, just a little bit too wide, missed the curb there, and well, pretty impressive. They keep it out of the tires. No more than a foot of distance in between. But pit service is clean at the front of the field as Kamer, 6, and King are all in. Matt Danson has already completed service. He is back out onto the racetrack and looks like he will maintain the net race lead. Still waiting on Harris, Frenosh, and Nieto to pit. That's a bonus point for Cody Harris, who leads the last time by, Josh. So we were talking about the chance that maybe somebody like a Sheen would race for a bonus point. He did not, and unless he wins this race, effectively not going to have an opportunity to do so. But it looks like Danson actually grew his advantage as they left pit road. It's almost 3 seconds right now, almost doubled it.
And they're well out in front of anybody behind them as well. Michael Lariah has pit, Johnson, Widemaster, King. Josh Ball has not come in. He sits about smack dab in the middle of all the drivers who did come into the pit lane. Brandon Bowie in the 34 is coming in. So, like you mentioned, still waiting on Harris. Would not be surprised if we see Freenarge and Nieto come in soon, wondering how long Cody Harris is going to spend at the front of the field. Here comes Freenarge in. Is Sam Nieto going to come in? He's on the outside of turn number 12, and the 2 car of Sam Nieto is coming in. So that pretty much leads to the drivers at the front, Cody Harris Josh Ball, who currently sits in 12th, he's working his way through the S's now. We'll see if he works his way into the pit lane this time. But Harris now a sitting duck out there on the racetrack, to put it lightly, as he works his way through turn number 4. He will have to pit soon, because if he doesn't, he is going to have Matt Danson breathing down his neck. It's still about 19 seconds from the 28 to the 05, but with the 05 on fresh tires and the 28 on tires that are now 25 laps old, is that gap is going to close down incredibly fast.
The one thing that I like to say is, you know, even if you give them the MWR jet fuel that lets them get to the end of the race, still not going to matter, right? The tires are that big of a deal, and Cody Harris, I think, securing a bonus point, pretty big for him, right? Gives him an opportunity to get a little bit more in the championship, but Matt Danson certainly going to be the person who leads this race very shortly. The battle for 5th at the moment is with the likes of Lariah, Johnson, and Freenosh. They've all completed their service. They're going to be good to go the distance. Freenosh still in 7. That number 7 spot will turn into a number 6 once Harris comes down pit road. Pit lane time in the 34-second range. Freenosh 40 seconds off. I think when you consider speeding up time and slowing down time, Harris may actually cycle up behind Freenosh. And oh, how's that an indication that maybe it's time to pit? Harris nearly bended that lap, Josh, and promptly decided to come down pit road. Probably a smart call for the driver who stayed out longer than anybody else, and that will cycle Matt Danson back to the race lead. Second place is still Liam Sheen. Where does Cody Harris end up? He is going to get ahead of Lariah. So Cody Harris, actually, impressively enough, 4th. I didn't think he'd be able to do it with the deltas, but Cody does a pretty good job and maintains the top 5 spot, and after completing pit service.
Yeah, but even being in 4th, he lost the 3rd place spot that he had before the pit stops had begun. So staying out that extra couple of laps did not help Cody Harris in the slightest, and it very much helped Kyle Kammer, who pitted 2 laps ago, pitted with Sheen and Danson, who now sits in P3. 2-lap fresher tires on Cody Harris, not going to be much of an advantage now. I don't think it'll be much of an advantage as they go through this run either, but we'll see exactly what's going to happen to the number 28 at Cody Harris. If the 8 at Kyle Kammer burns his tires up and the 28 keeps control of those tires like he did for that long run, he might be tracking down that 3rd place spot, and we might see him not be affected by that pit stop really in the long run at all.
Looking at 22 cars on the lead lap. This is probably the most condensed trio anywhere of them, with Lariah, Johnson, and Freenosh, as the 88 car looked to the inside in 13, and Johnson was not giving that spot, and I think it's a good thing that Freenosh saw that, backed out of it, because that would have been a collision course coming to the end of lap number 27. So it's very clear drivers have not been racing, I don't know if etiquette is the right word, Josh, because I don't think not yielding a position means that you're not using proper race etiquette, but certainly drivers have been in no rush to yield positions to faster cars behind. Doesn't matter if it's a battle in the top 5, doesn't matter if it's a battle outside of the top 20, everybody has been fighting for tooth and nail for every single spot on the racetrack tonight, and Cody Harris has a 2-lap advantage on the tires here, trying to use that to get back around Kyle Kammer and retake 3rd where he was before the pit cycle began.
He's close, but we've seen a lot of battles go this way in this race, where they're close, but they need a mistake from the driver in front to really draw them in and be able to make that pass. It is very difficult to get side by side with a driver if they do not make a mistake in front of you at this racetrack. So even though Harris this time by, most likely going to run a faster lap than the 8 of Kyle Kammer, he's going to have a difficult time trying to get by him. Here's the aggression going down into turn number 1, and you can see Kyle Kammer not giving him an inch at all, and he will hold on to that spot. Now he's going to try and protect the inside. Here comes Harris with a peek to the outside. Like I mentioned, very difficult to get side by side, and you can see just how quickly it's diffused as now Kyle Kamer goes right on by the 28 of Cody Harris to hold on to that spot.
Well, as we watch the battle continuing, they are 13 seconds off of the race leaders. They are also 8 seconds ahead of the next closest cars, right? I mean, these drivers very clearly have third and fourth locked up if they can play fair. Harris is all over the bumper of the 8 car there. Kyle Kamer using him up now at the back half of the racetrack now. Again, through a left-hander. The 28 looking, but it'll be the outside for the next corner through the S's. Kamer pretty wide as they're going to set this one up for a battle as they go out of turn number 9 and through Thunder Valley.
Where's Harris going to try and get back around? Let's find out. They're coming through the final couple of corners here. He's not going to have an opportunity. Harris sends it wide. Can he get the apex?
Looked like a bit of a mistake. Took the corner too shallow, swung it out wide, and Kamer hangs on for another lap. Let's ride on board with Cody Harris around Mid-Ohio. Oh, lots of contact, but Cody Harris will force his way through. That battle went from 4 to 6, and Cody Harris pushing his way by. You saw the onboard look, and there it is. Just squeezes him out, Josh, in turn 5, and Cody Harris gave nothing to Kyle Kamer there, and he takes back third.
Beautiful move from Cody Harris, but you can see on the gaps he's still a long way back from Liam Sheen and Matt Danson, so he won that battle. It's going to be a lot of work to reach up to those leaders, and it's going to require about both of them to make a mistake at the front. But Cody Harris to get up and into those podium places is going to be great for him, as he was up there for the beginning portion of this race, and hopefully he can finish there if Kyle Kamer doesn't have anything to say about it. Oh, hard braking for Anthony DeBarro going into the keyhole, sends him around.
And he's going to get off of the racetrack quickly because he was blocking the road. Let's see his onboard perspective here of what happened. Heavy braking zone. Oh, it got loose under braking. That was down going to turn number 2, as you mentioned, and as soon as he got under braking, I wonder if he money shifted it and blew it up on the downshift, because as soon as he started to get on the brakes, that thing went sideways. I saw some smoke, so I think that is the culprit. DeBarro's night is done. That's the issue for the 2-7. Meanwhile, the 7-2 of Chris Edwards was also off track for probably the 27th time tonight, but listen, give Chris some credit, Josh. Not everybody's a road course driver, right? I mean, this series, 9 of the 10 races are ovals. If you're racing a NASCAR stock car on the sim, you're probably an oval racer, right? Not everybody has the experience and the time to practice the road races like others. So, you know, you'll see a guy like a Chris Edwards, a Dylan Parker make those kind of mistakes. But I think it's good to see them here getting better week by week.
That's the entire reason in the real world road course ringers became a thing, because you'd get dominant road course racers into these cars to run on smaller teams, have an opportunity to win, and get those smaller teams a little bit more exposure. As we see James Ross in the 14 go off track. Let's see, is coming through turn number 5, and oh, he tried to diamond that apex and went a little bit too wide when he came through that corner, Evan, and ended up, oh, just got a little bit loose. You can see him trying to correct over. The tires did not want to do that, sucked him right off racetrack.
A break for him. Ross down in 24th. Now we pick up the fight with Sam Nieto and Brandon Six. Both of these cars pretty torn up. Not surprised if the damage on both of them was courtesy of Jaron Weinmaster. That was the battle of the first half of this race. Jaron is up the road in the number 8 position, and Nieto and Six are fighting right now for 10th and 11th. Their interval to the race leaders is about 32 seconds. No one's catching them. Tim Johnston is about 18 seconds behind, but they could gain if they have the opportunity to keep this clean and catch up to guys like Kevin King and Jaron Weinmaster, who are only 3 seconds ahead of them. You can see those two cars as you look on the onboard with Nieto. So there is an opportunity for these drivers to gain positions, and Brandon Six gained a lot on the exit of that last corner.
As we ride on board with Sam Nieto, you mentioned that damage. I'm wondering, as going way wide is Brandon Six in the 66, contact made as Sam Nieto goes right to the inside, hits him on the quarter panel. They both get loose coming through the final corner of turn 13. But as I was saying, Evan, I'm wondering if that damage on the front of the two is going to lead to some overheating issues. We know, especially on these stock cars, front end damage could do damage to the radiator, which could in turn lead to the engine, the water temp, or the oil temp climbing inside of that race car. Hopefully the two doesn't reach into any overheating issues, as he is going to straight up turn Brandon Six coming off of turn 2.
They came together in the battle for 10th and 11th position. Brandon Six had the inside open, and Sam Nieto went right through him. I think let's listen to see if he lifted the throttle or not. He was way back in the 2. Let's see what happened. I mean, it certainly didn't drive through him, Josh. He wasn't on throttle, so I mean, he still split him out, right? It's definitely on the 2 car. You could hear with the onboard, he wasn't under power when it happened. I wonder if Six, who had a 4-car length advantage, just missed the corner that badly?
You know what I wonder, Evan? If you're half right. If Brandon Six had an okay corner and Sam Nieto on the rumble strip on the inside got a little bit of a boost of grip and got on the throttle and powered himself through the corner and couldn't get onto the brakes in time to avoid the contact with Brandon Six. Very interesting moment there. I don't think Sam Nieto is going to be too particularly proud of it, and wondering if Brandon Six, now 7 seconds off of the 2, is going to remember that one if they come together closer to the end of this race.
They're very fortunate for the 18-second gap I mentioned that they had over Tim Johnston in 12th, because despite the spin, Brandon Six doesn't lose anything but time. He will maintain 11th position, but he's going to be way back from Nieto and will need extreme pace in the second half of this race if he's going to get up there and try to get back into a top 10 position. The other fight watching right now is inside of the top 10 positions. Michael Araya has the number 6 spot. Michael Johnson wants it. That's some of the best stuff on track right now. Not missing anything in the battle for the race lead. Matt Danson still leading. He's now led 30 of the 33 laps that have been completed this afternoon. He's pretty steady at 2 seconds ahead of Liam Sheen. Sheen has been there in P2 for the majority of this race. Of course, not missing anything. You can see those intervals on the left-hand side of your screen, and there's the live looking at the gap. This one's going to have to come down to Liam Sheen having saved something that we haven't seen out of that car tonight, or Danson getting a little bit unlucky with some of the lapped cars up the road, right? One bad timing on catching a lapped car where they've got the preferred lane, or, they're parked on the apex of the corner, can take a chunk out of that 2-second difference and could bring Liam Sheen back into the conversation, but right now, things looking pretty good for the first-time starter this year and defending series champion Matt Danson.
Perfect race the 05 has run so far. He has not really made any mistakes and definitely had a solid pit stop to keep him at the front. So, but interesting to note, Liam Sheen has the faster best lap time by about 4/10. So Liam Sheen, with a faster single lap race car, didn't start on the pole and has not had the lap times over the course of a run to be able to catch up to the 05, but still has the fastest lap of the race. It'd be borderline heartbreak for Liam Sheen if he does not get close enough to have an opportunity to get this win, because he has shown that he has better speed than the 05. We take a look at the battle for 12. Tim Johnston, Chris Rabel, Ross Cato, Nick Silver, and William Schmidt battling into turn 4.
They are all stacked up as we are closing in on 15 laps to go in the Sim Speed Shop 50 here from virtual Lexington, Ohio. Rabel was really hung out a couple corners ago with the back end stepping out on him. Working real hard to get up to Tim Johnston and try to get away from Cato, try to get away from Silver, Schmidt. I mean, I feel like these 5 cars, Josh, have been on top of each other all night long. I wonder if it's going to be that much more mentally taxing on a driver, right? I mean, this is by no means an endurance race, right? Don't get me wrong. But again, these stock cars are not made to drive on a track like this. I mean, you have to be tense on the throttle, on your braking, on your steering, on your shifting all the time, because all these race cars want to do is spin out when you try to put the power down to the asphalt, which, by the way, is 116 degrees track temp this afternoon, so it's that much more challenging. I just have to think, if you've been in a battle like this for all 36 laps, you've got to be significantly more, at least mentally tired, if not also physically tired, than some of the guys who have had some space to work with and opportunities to take a deep breath.
Well, definitely, and you also have to think that while it is not an endurance race, it is still fairly long, especially having to wrestle around these heavy stock cars that barely have any business going around an oval at speed, let alone around a road course at speed. Trying to put so much power down to the ground on rather tiny tires, it should be said. It's very difficult to wrestle these things around, especially the Xfinity cars, with how low downforce they have. So you have to do that for, we mentioned on the stopwatch, roughly about 75 minutes, and for 50 laps straight with no yellow flags. The only break you get is one 15-second pit stop in about 33 seconds down the pit lane. So it does become taxing, especially if you're always trying to chase down the driver in front, or in the case of this battle of 5, pass the driver in front, or if you're trying to defend behind you, constantly looking in the mirror, constantly wondering when or if they're going to make that move, and if they go for an aggressive move, how do you avoid crashing into them and being out of the race?
And we've seen a surprising amount of contact as well for a road course race. Normally, you don't see so many drivers getting into each other on a track that is 2.25 miles long. But then again, these are NASCAR stock cars, and then again, this is the RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. So I should not be surprised that no matter what position drivers are fighting for, people are physical, people are very aggressive. I don't think that's anything different. But I think that maybe a small part of that is the fact that the team championship is an actual award this season, Josh. In years past, it's been kind of an unofficial thing that the team owners have tracked and, you know, have raced for bragging rights that they win the team championship. But it's actual hardware on the line this year, right? The team champions will get a trophy for getting the most team points over the course of a season, and I just have to think that maybe that's why some of the guys, even if you're in the teams, if you're the third highest guy in your team, right, the top 3 cars for each team score points towards that team championship each week, maybe that's why you're a little bit more inclined to race hard. So just an added element into this championship is the fact that we've got really 2 title fights going on.
Yeah, and of course, with that team championship, it does become a bit of a team game. You want to make sure your teammates are cared for. You want to make sure that you're not racing your teammates too hard. If they have the faster car, let them by. Let them go race and try and get more points up ahead of you. So when you add a team championship element, it really goes from one driver and versus 28 in this case to maybe a pack of 2, 3, or 4 drivers against another pack of 2, 3, or 4 drivers, and multiple packs at that going through the teams. So yes, there is a single driver championship, but you also have to think about the team championship. Make sure that you're still thinking about your driver's championship, but you're not hindering your teammates in that team championship.
I mean, these teams are huge, and this will be something that the team owners and drivers could vote on next year, right? Will team sizes be limited? Doesn't matter if you have 3 cars on your team. Doesn't matter if you have 30 cars on your team. Only the top 3 each week score points. But the more people you have on your team, Josh, the better your odds are of getting those finishers at a top position, right? We talked about what are those teams coming into tonight, and I mentioned that the only ones that have gotten max points is Keeping It Real, Flat Out, and XPM. And those are some very, very talented teams. On Flat Out Motorsports, you got Bradley Burke, you got Grant Davis, Michael Araya, Sam Nieto, and Joseph Tice. On Keeping It Real Esports, you got Trey Browning, Brandon Bowie, Sean Casto, Brian Chambliss, Michael Johnson, Chris Rabel, William Schmidt, Nick Silver, and Brandon Six. Yes, that's all of them. And the next PM continues to grow. They've got Mike Kaczynski, Jeremy Miller, Kyle Trudell, Jaron Weinmaster, and Braden Whitaker. So there are lots of drivers on those teams, and like I said, I think it's been one of the cooler things is seeing those teams grow, and they may have outgrown the current team championship. So that's something the drivers will vote on going into the Cup Series next year, is will those teams be limited to a number, and maybe you'll have a Keeping It Real A and a Keeping It Real B, right, and have multiple teams amongst a single team in terms of classifying for the team championship. So just things as this series continues to evolve over the years. And talk about waitlist drivers, Josh. Some as many as 10 drivers have had the option to get themselves into the series from the waitlist. Yeah, this race tonight only has 29 cars, but there's some 57 cars who are eligible to race, right? I think the road course scared some guys away. The waitlist has still got about 15 people on it, so I think the health of the series is definitely up there. And listen, we're just really getting into the thick of things for this Winter Series title, and people are already talking about racing for the Cup Series championship.
Well, this Winter Series really gives a bit of a look at who those drivers going for the championship is going to be. Which of these drivers is going to be the one that sets next year's Cup Series on fire? Because right now, gonna need a bit of that as Adrian Freenage goes for 5 in a row. So is this Winter Series going to give a bit of a fire to a couple of those drivers to say, hey, I can make a run at the championship. I can dethrone Andrew Freenage at the top of the Real Sim Racing Cup Series. We'll see what this Winter Series is going to do for the confidence of a lot of drivers, because that goes in hand with what I just said about the fire going into them. If they see they're doing great in this Winter Series, how about the other drivers up at the front? Trudell, Cato, Laraya, Nick Silver, Liam Sheen, Brandon Bowie is there up in the top 7. If they see doing great in the Winter Series, that might give them more confidence to really go for it in the Cup Series and try and make a name for themselves.
And Danson is locked in, 4.5 seconds now ahead of Liam Sheen. It is the biggest advantage we've seen for the top spot all night long. Again, Danson missed the first 3 rounds. He was just moved in from the waitlist this afternoon after not initially signing up because he knew he wasn't able to compete full-time for a championship. Danson, this win not going to count much for the championship. The big thing is the second-place points that Liam Sheen is looking for. And Cody Harris, who has been 3rd all night long with a big mistake. He goes off and into the sand down in turn number 9, and that has cost him the 3rd position. Here's the onboard look. That looked very similar to another driver, Josh, who went off on that same corner earlier in this race. And what that mistake has done is given 3rd to Kyle Kamer.
Another one of those incidences where they just overcooked it coming through turn 8, and once you get one tire on the grass, it's very difficult to not make that 2, 3, and 4 tires into the grass. And then once you're on the grass, very difficult to get it back onto the asphalt. He took a little bit of a trip through the sand, eventually got there, but now running in P4, some odd 3.6 seconds behind Kyle Kamer, who has worked himself back and up and into the top 3 of this race. Is continuing to fight. The battle for 12th is not calmed down at all yet, Evan. Is take a look at the 29. That was Chris Rabel trying to make a bit of a dive on the 56 of Tim Johnston. Couldn't get close enough, but Nick Silver, Ross Cato, they're all still there, all still in a line close together.
And just now, I think, waiting for that final ball to drop, right? The mistake by Harris is a big one. There's a lot of unsettled business, though, in this fight. 12th on back, still led by Johnston. The clock is ticking if you're going to want to make a move late in this race. And last time we saw a pack of 5 cars like this, there was a lot of contact before it all got resolved. How hard are you willing to race for all of these drivers fighting for 12th through 16th position. Also incredible as well, I mean, some of it has to do with the fact that you're stacked up in line. It's a little bit tricky to pass, but I mean, after 41 laps, and you know, you're looking at time-wise, about an hour and 5 minutes since we took the green flag, Josh. The fact that these cars are still this tight on pace after all that time has passed.
They're all still close together. They were close together before the pit stop, close together after the pit stop, and mentioned earlier if it's just a byproduct of maybe Tim Johnston being a fairly slow car in this group. Well, that doesn't really work for this group because he is the second fastest car behind William Schmidt and Braden Whitaker, it should be said, even though Whitaker's a bit farther off the pace of this group in the 04. 131 flat last time by for Whitaker, 131.5 for William Schmidt, 131.8 for Tim Johnston. As here comes Brian Chambliss, and as we take a look at a replay of him going off the racetrack, another driver getting in a little bit too hot coming through turn 4.
Good look at a car that Brian Chambliss has got. Good thing it didn't tear it up on that trip through the grass. His Mara Racing Network number 9 Chevrolet with a bit of back-end damage from contact earlier in this race. He is the first car off of the lead lap in 19th position. Alexander Russell in his first start, the number 57 JDR Graphics Chevrolet, last car on the lead lap. He is likely to get lapped by Matt Danson. The question is this group. They are a minute 12 off of the leader. That puts them about 20 seconds ahead of the race leader. Danson would need to be about 2 seconds quicker than them per lap to get there. And he's about 1 to 1.5. So I think they will be okay. But if Danson does get there, I mean, even the fact that, you know, he's 6 seconds ahead of Liam Sheen could be tricky because that is a lot of traffic that he would have to navigate. So I think Danson's going to be okay. The 05, I think, would really prefer to not catch this pack because that could give him quite a headache in the closing stages.
You talk about a headache. Let's talk about the headache that Tim Johnston is receiving as the 56 leads this group, constantly looking in his mirror, wondering what is Chris Rabel going to do? What is Nick Silver? What is Ross Cato? What is William Schmidt going to do? As they run still all on a line. All 6 of these drivers were condensed so close together coming through the keyhole that Tim Johnston was coming through the exit of the keyhole, and the driver at the tail end, Braden Whitaker, was in the entrance of the keyhole. Not just entering, he was in the corner about to reach the apex. So everybody condensed together as here's the move down to the inside for the 29er, Chris Rabel. Is he gonna get the power down? Loose in the background as the 70-80 almost comes together with Braden Whitaker as they stay side by side. Now on the outside goes the 56, trying to power around. They door slam and the 29 is loose. He's going around, coming through turn 7.
What an avoidance as Ross Cato avoids crashing into the spinning Chris Rabel. And I mentioned that last time we saw a big pack like this, it ended in contact. It does this time as well. Rabel was underneath Johnston. But the problem is they come off of the corner there. The 29 is pushing wide, Josh. But the 56 is already setting up for the next corner, right? So right there, you'll see the 29, he's going to go wide off of the corner. But Johnson's already going to the right to try to set up for the next corner, and it just gets that 29 out of shape enough. And look at that driving. What a job by Cato to avoid T-boning that car in front of him.
And as we go back live with 7 laps to go, you can see just how broken up this group got from that incident. Easy to understand, really, why they got broken up. They just had a driver spin out in front of them, so now they're going to be rather calm. Maybe not really wanting to race around another driver. That might have scared them into running a little bit safer to the end of this race. But as I say that, look at the closing rate through the braking zone, and hard onto the brakes goes the 4 and Nick Silver. He almost ran into the back of the 56. 2 completely different braking markers for those drivers. The 56 braked way earlier than the 4. Silver had to almost lock down the front 2 tires to get that Toyota Supra stopped.
Yeah, it was a close call, but I think overall, anytime we've seen a moment like that tonight, I think we've seen great driving out of it, and the unfortunate end there is Rabel who falls down to 17th position after getting the short end of the straw there and having spun out. Rabel came into tonight 9th in the championship for Keep It at Real Esports, the team leading the team championship, and he'll drop a couple of spots there. Not the greatest of ends for his Southern Creek Clothing Company Ford Mustang. He is likely to finish this one as the last car on the lead lap, although again, always a threat. Danson could get up there. Watching the battle for P6, Michael Araya and Michael Johnson fighting for 6 and 7. We're up 5 seconds up the road from Jaron Winemaster, who has had a quiet second half to his race. Araya really loose that time off of the corner, and I think Johnson may have a fighting chance here to get this, as next time by, he'll see 5 laps to go.
5 to go, which means time is running out to get these moves made. You can see Lariah very defensive, going right to the bottom of the racetrack. And you can see when the driver behind, in this case it is Johnson here in the number 7 spot, trying to get around, they'll start to do different things through the middle of the corners. They'll go a little bit wider, trying to arch the apex. They're really going to do anything but what the driver in front of them is doing, in the hopes of trying to get around them. So as we see them working their way through turn 2, look for, in this next corner, turn number 4, for Michael Johnson to maybe look about a half a lane up. He's not going to run exactly what Michael Araya does. He might try and just go a little bit further up the racetrack to try something a little bit different to make up some time. Here they go into the right-hander of 4. And you can see Lariah goes a little bit about a half lane up, and sticking it right on that inside rumble strip is the 39.
Very well positioned by both those drivers. Johnson to close, Lariah to defend. Now they head through the S's. Turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, and they'll continue on to the back half of the racetrack. Liam Sheen over the radio may have had some sort of a mistake, though. I wonder what happened with Liam. He was apologizing on the radio. Liam Sheen is 2nd in this race. And I'm just trying to figure out if he made contact with somebody, or I think everything's going to be okay, John. I think he had a close call with the Brandon DeBowie, a lapped car with a connection problem. Just wanted to make sure Liam Sheen didn't crash out, but the 92 appears to be okay, so I think that's crisis averted. But anytime the car in 2nd queues up on the open driver radio and says, "Oh no, I'm sorry," you tend to assume the worst, but I think everything's okay, and Sheen maintains P2. That little hiccup, though, does extend the lead to Matt Danson that much more. Not that Liam was really in striking distance anymore, but I think that may be the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that connection issue was on Liam's side. He kind of lost connection to the server coming through turn 11, regained it coming through turn 13, and was only about a couple of feet ahead of Brandon Bowie, who he was trying to work around. So a little bit of a connection issue there, but now as we look at it, battle for 12th, and the 56 has lost a ton of positions. What on earth has happened to Tim Johnston? Here's the replay. The 4 goes to the inside, a little bit loose coming out of turn number 9. They go into Thunder Valley, and I think he might have cut the corner a couple of corners earlier and had to slow down and give the time back.
This is the only thing I can think of. I don't think Johnston, for fighting so hard all race, would have just pulled over to get out of the way. But, I mean, I'm looking at some of the previous corners. I don't see anything that could have been classified as cutting a corner that would have led to a slowdown penalty. If you're unfamiliar on the iRacing service, if you cut a corner, you will give an X amount of seconds that you need to slow down from race pace to make up for the time that you gained by cutting that corner. And it's certainly what it looked like from Tim Johnston there, but because he got out of the groove, and I get it, you lose one spot, Josh, that's one thing, but he didn't fight back, right? He kind of let all those spots go, and if there's no penalty, certainly very passive driving from Johnston there, because it cost him a handful of spots.
Yeah, we were discussing if it could be just the tires being shot on the 56, but when I just took a look at that onboard there, it didn't seem like he got out of the gas to save a spinning race car, save a sliding race car. He just straight up got off of the gas, let those drivers go by. Now the 56 is going to go off track. This is in turn number 12. He's going to be forced into the pit lane after taking a trip through the grass, sliding it all the way through. Shades at Ken Block, and he is now going to say he's going to pit it into his stall and leave the race server. There's the incident for the 56, way off the racetrack.
It has fallen apart for Tim Johnston, and as you mentioned, he just ended up going wide there and was forced down and into the pit lane. His night is done. Here's the onboard perspective. Let's see.
Right
even
off.
on the straight, on the straight there was so much counter steer, and I have to wonder, maybe that gives a lot more credence to the tire issue. Maybe he locked it up, right? Had some sort of issue that really messed up those tires, but clearly they just absolutely fell off a cliff in those last 2 laps, and Tim Johnston not going to get a finish that he deserved after funning so good for so long here this afternoon from Mid-Ohio. Meanwhile, your race at Matt Danson about to lap Chris Rabel. When he does so, now there will be only 15 cars left on the lead lap, and Danson about to take the white flag uncontested from Liam Sheen, who stuck with him for so much in this race. But Danson has absolutely put it to him in the last 10 laps, and Danson in the front of the field, first start in a part-time campaign, looking for the 1 to go.
I mentioned it, a perfect race for Matt Danson. Not a lot of mistakes. If there were any, we certainly didn't catch him with our cameras. Perfect pit stop, cut the race basically in half, and now a 25-lap stint to the end. Not even a contest for Matt Danson out there on the track. Liam Sheen with the faster lap time in a single lap. He has the fastest lap time of the race so far in that number 92. The last time by was about 3.5 tenths slower and sits about 9.5 seconds behind the 05.
There's the traffic up the road that I mentioned Danson really did not want to have to deal with, and with the gap he has on Sheen now, probably wouldn't have mattered in the end. But if Sheen was closer and this race had 5 extra laps, Danson was going to have a lot more to deal with to get all the way home in this one. But again, Danson is the only driver not named Andrew Friedosh to win an RSR championship since 2018. Friedosh had won back-to-back here in the Winter Series at 18 and 20, but it was Danson in a thrilling campaign last year that went all the way to the season finale at Las Vegas, who took home that championship. Was unable to compete in the Winter Series full-time this season, but I'm sure he was very happy when he got that waitlist call coming into Mid-Ohio. Final set of corners for a near-perfect night for Matt Danson. He leads 47 laps and wins in the RSR Winter Series at Mid-Ohio. Liam Sheen just now crossing the line and congratulates Danson on the race win. What a drive for the 05 machine, as Danson gets yet another trip to victory lane here in RealSimRacing. We talk about all of the accolades and how much he's done, as half of these battles aren't done coming to the checkered flag yet. Winemaster trying to hold off Kevin King, who's not going to be able to get there. Winemaster holds on ahead of King. You got Nieto 6 in silver towards the rear. But what a job and what a drive that we have seen out of Matt Danson here this afternoon. He's only been around for so long, Josh. He's still new somewhat to the RSR championships, but he gets his 8th career win in RSR competition tonight. That ties him with vets like Adam Benefield and Eric Brundys, as well as active drivers Brandon Bowie, Thomas George, and Rhett McBride. So a great showing tonight for Matt Danson. Let's take a look at your Sim Speed Shop full race results tonight for the virtual Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Final margin of victory is 10 seconds. Danson over Liam Sheen, who comes home in P2. Totally dominant drive that really wasn't rounded out until the very end. Hard to believe that with 10 laps to go in this race, that gap was down at about 3 seconds, so he really took it to him towards the end. Kyle Kamer also finishes in third tonight. We'll throw trackside to talk with all of those drivers in just a few moments. Cody Harris and Andrew Freenosh finish inside of the top 5. Michael Araya comes home P6 tonight. He's ahead of Michael Johnson in 7th position. Jaron Winemaster comes home in 8th. Kevin King is a P9 in his debut. Josh and Sam Nieto rounds out the top 10.
Liam Sheen, fastest lap of the race, only finishes P2. Brandon Six ends up P11 with Ross Cato P12. William Schmidt, Nick Silver, and Braden Whitaker round out the drivers who finished on the lead lap. Down from there, Chris Rabel, Brandon Bowie, Alexander Russell, Brian Chambliss, and Joshua Ball all finish 1 lap down, rounding out the top 20 spots.
Also a lap down will be Kyle Trudell in 21st. 2 laps down is Ross, 22nd. 3 laps down, Johnston, 23rd. The rest of the drivers unable to go the distance. It'll be Edwards and DeBarro through the top 25, with Dylan DeParker, Trevin Valderrama, Mike Kaczynski, and Sean Casto in 29th. That's a look top to bottom at your Sim Speed Shop, but full race results. Sim Speed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world racing components to their products to give you the most realistic experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. We'll go trackside, talk with your top finishers. Josh Danson still celebrating somewhere, so let's go reverse order and talk with Kyle Kamer first. Your trackside with the driver of the number 8 machine, who comes home tonight in 3rd.
Well, a great run for Kyle Kamer, and it definitely did not come without a bit of a fight there, Kyle. It looked like out there on the racetrack you were pretty comfortable, but a couple of tough moments. Talk about how that race was from your perspective behind the wheel of your SK Sim Racing Ford Mustang.
Yeah, thanks. Praise God. It's a lot of fun to just get out here and do this every Monday night. Yeah, the beginning of the race was a bit frustrating for me. I got caught up behind a slower car on the start and spent, I don't know, 17 or 18 laps trying to get around him, and at that point the leaders were gone. Was pretty much just racing for 3rd at that point. But yeah, it's fun. I love Mid-Ohio. I had a great time.
Going through that race, you had a bit of a fight with Cody Harris, and he really tried to challenge you there. He got past you for a moment, and then you were able to get back up into the top 3. Do you feel like you finished where your car was best? Do you feel like you had a 3rd place car? Do you think you had a car to contend with Sheen and Danson at the front of the field?
I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at the lap times to figure all that out. They were both flying fast. But yeah, Cody and I were very equal on pace. So that it would have been a lot of fun to see if I could have got around the 48 at the beginning, and who knows? But yeah, I mean, 3rd place is a great finish. For me, it's not a finish that I'll probably ever see again. There's so much talent in this league, from top to bottom. I'm pumped to be up here in the top 3.
Well, we go back to the ovals in 1 week's time, Chicagoland Speedway. Where's your confidence at going into the 5th round of this Winter Series campaign?
I feel pretty confident that Andrew Freenosh is going to be really fast. That's what I think about that one.
Well, that is where a lot of drivers' confidence level is at, I definitely think. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us here post-race on RaceSpotTV. Congratulations on your podium finish. A great P3 for you and the SK Sim Racing team.
Hey, thanks, guys. A great series, great broadcast. Thanks, guys.
P3 for Kyle Kamer. Evan, a great run for him, and a better run for the 92 of Liam Sheen, who I'm going to be standing by here with now. Liam, 2nd place. You had the fastest lap of the race, which is definitely something to say about today, but could not get it done in the winner's circle. What was missing from the number 92 today?
I guess it's just overall patience. With me I mean, I held pace with Matt that first run, and that got my hopes up. So when I went on to pit road, tried to get a little greedy, but didn't speed. So I tried to, you know, brake as late as I could for my stall, and just went a little bit too far, to the point where if I just put it in a different gear, it would have backed me up. But yeah, the rest of the race I was just trying to make up for it. I thought I was, and then I just smoked the tires later on, and I think 3 to go in the race. My VR froze, so I had to like panic for a second. I was like, oh god, what happened? And then we were fine, but thankfully we came back from that. But yeah, I just didn't have the pace to match Matt in that second run, but hopefully I kept him honest tonight, and yeah.
It definitely looked like you did, especially like you mentioned in the first half of that race. But end of the day, Danson up at the front. Do you think if you weren't greedy under the pit stop, and that if you didn't have that little bit of a freeze of the VR headset, that you could have put something to the 05? Because like I mentioned, fastest lap of the race by just about 4/10 over Matt Danson. So it seemed like for a little bit there, at least, you had a little bit of a better car than the leader of the race.
I think it would have been closer, because I did cut in about a second and a half before you know, the issue started happening and my tires went away. But I did get closer. I feel like if I got on him and didn't, you know, slide through my stall a little bit there, I think I would have had a would have been on his bumper a little bit, and you know, maybe could have, you know, gave him a nudge out of the way. But you know, hindsight 2020. But just trying to get everything there.
Well, going forward into Chicagoland in 1 week's time, we heard from Kyle Kamer that his confidence level was that Andrew Farinage was going to be fast. So I'll ask you, do you think you can keep up with the number 88 machine going back to an intermediate track?
I feel like I can, because you know, those tracks you can kind of control your own destiny, with you know, contrary to the Cup car. With Iowa, you know, it's just kind of like okay, do you get moved or do you not? And if you don't, you know, you finish well. And Auto Club is really like Speedway-esque. You know, this kind of starts a stretch of races where you can kind of control your own destiny with your tire management, with your speed and everything like that. So yeah, maybe overall with a championship, I don't know where this puts me in points. I think it might be closer to third or second around there. But I don't think there's any chance I can get to Andrew unless he has to go plow snow or something on Monday. But you know, if he can, I'm just trying to be the guy that can pick up the pieces for that and maybe put a fight to the 88 car.
Well, we'll let you get out of here and then go ahead and get started with the practice for Chicagoland to try and put something to the 88. Liam, congratulations on your second place, and thank you for joining us here post-race.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, JD, for the cool paint, and Kevin King from the team, and all those guys. So, yeah, thank you.
Great run for Liam Sheen tonight. Evan, you're standing by with race winner, the 05, Matt Danson, who has finally finished off his celebrations here at Mid-Ohio.
He took it around to turn number 1 there and had a lot of fun with this one. Matt Danson is back in RSR victory lane. Matt, worked out well for you to get the call back tonight at Mid-Ohio. We know that you love these road courses, and see you back in an Xfinity car must have been fun.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. A lot of pressure as well, I suppose, in that you know, I've got to maintain my run of road course victories, and I was a bit nervous, you know, looking at the times when I joined in practice, and everyone's doing like low 27s and high 26s and whatnot. But yeah, got thankfully a clean enough lap. I almost threw in quali, but just got enough to hold pole, and that was super important for the race, because you know, track position is massive at this track.
Liam mentioned when we talked to him that he had some confidence being able to stick with you there in the first half of the race, and maybe got a little bit greedy in the second half. I mean, knowing that these road races aren't going to have yellows, and having, you know, been hounded by Liam, he never was really more than a second off of your bumper until right before the pit stops there at halfway. How'd you manage this race from behind the wheel?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good assessment, Evan. I hadn't done a long run, to be honest. Obviously just with work commitments and life getting in the way, I'd only really been able to do sort of hot lap practice, and so I I was kind of going in a little bit blind as far as what was going to happen long runs. That first run, I was just really trying to save as much as I could, and I got to, I think, around about like lap 18 or something around there. And I thought, okay, we're pretty close to the stops now. I can try and see if I can get some more out of it. And I proceeded to go slower for the next 2 laps because I think I was just trying too hard, and the car just didn't want it. So got back in the rhythm of just being smooth and just doing my usual sort of style, and then started to eke a little bit out. I think we got it to about 1.8 or something before the stops, and then I think Liam obviously had some sort of issue on his pit stop because I came out with a pretty hefty lead, and at that point it was just a matter of not using it too much in those early laps. I thought, I'll let him kind of get back towards me a little bit, and I can afford to let that happen, and then hopefully him doing that will use up more of his stuff, and I can have the benefit for the second half. And it's pretty much how it worked out. I was also pretty interested to see how Odie's strat was going to work, but once I saw him behind Kyle, I was pretty confident that he's going to basically have to use up any of the good in his tyres to get around Kyle, and that was going to be game over, and it played out that way.
You mentioned keeping that road course win streak alive that goes back to the Cup Series. You now have 8 RSR wins all time, 4 in the Cup Series, 4 in the Winter Series. I want to ask, though, we always hear drivers compare the B car to the A car, especially on ovals, but when it comes to road racing, how dissimilar or similar are the 2 cars?
I think it's just the drop-off that's the biggest thing, at least from my perspective. In the Cup car, you get massive drop-off, it seems. Certainly at a place like Roval last time we were out there, Sonoma, those sorts of tracks, it seems like you get a lot more, whereas the B car, maybe I think we had 2 seconds of drop-off here, which is, it's almost nothing. So I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like this car just maybe keeps its rears on it a bit better than the Cup car does, maybe the power thing. But I feel like, I think style-wise, at least for me, it's mostly the same. This is just a little bit tighter. I feel like the Cup car is a bit more lively at times, until it destroys its tyres, of course. So I think it's just, you've got to be a bit more patient with this one.
Well, certainly the win is big for you guys. You aren't competing on a full-time basis for the championship, so is this going to be a one and done, or will we see more of the 05 Chevy in a couple weeks?
If work allows, I'd obviously love to get out and have another run. I had to twist some arms to get me to start a little bit late today to do this one, but I'm a massive fan of RSR. Actually, still, even the races I haven't been doing, I'm still watching them. After work and whatnot. It's a nice, actually, dinner time watch for me. I sit down on the couch and listen to Evan Pasoko. What more could you ask for? But yeah, so hopefully if I can do another one, by all means, I'll get out here. But then again, a 100% win rate for the season is pretty good too, isn't it?
Not that bad. I'll tell you what, we'll let you get out of here and get to the fun stuff, and that's work for the rest of the day. But before we let you go, anybody want to say hi to?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, everyone involved with Logitech G Altus Esports. So, of course, Logitech G, Astro Gaming, Virtual Racing School. I probably couldn't have got that win done without my Virtual Racing School Direct Force Pro. And RaceTech Seats, Owned Live, and I don't think I've forgotten anything. But obviously, you guys, like I said, it's very enjoyable to sit down and watch the races, and it's the most professional presentation, I think, of any racing series there is on iRacing. So kudos to you guys, and of course the admin, everyone who runs it. It's thanks to everyone involved with all that.
Well, happy to have you with us back at Monday night. Congratulations, Matt Danson, your race winner in the SimSpeed Shop 50. And we recap this one, Josh, which has shaken up the championship a little bit. Of course, we talked about maybe Freenosh not having the greatest of nights, and he finished 5th. So I think it says something when Freenosh finishing 5th is an opportunity, right, for somebody else to gain spots. He maintains the championship lead. I'm just going to look at the standings now. Michael Araya, a big winner. He jumps 2 spots. He's now second in the points, still 28 back. So in the end, Freenoj's championship lead actually grows. And then Ross Cato and Liam Sheen will be tied for third in the championship at a minus 33. Now, you heard Liam allude to it there, and it's something that Andrew's been talking about all year, the fact that he may have to miss a race due to work. So if these guys can just stay within a race worth of points, I don't think we can count this championship out at all. And I think Freenoj, certainly happy that Danson can't compete full-time either, because with that performance tonight, Danson certainly a threat if he was able to do this full-time.
Yeah, we know Matt Danson, of course, a competitor from the NASCAR Road to Pro Series from earlier this season. So we know Danson is a competitor. Andrew Freenoj is also in that series as well. So we know, of course, he's a competitor, 4-time Cup Series champion in a row. So with Freenoj having a bit of an off night tonight, which again, a bit of an off night, P5, very weird to say.
Worst finish of the year.
Yeah, worst finish of the year, top 5. He keeps up his streak of top 5s. So we can see if anybody's going to have an opportunity to catch Andrew Freenoj, but we heard from especially Liam Sheen and Kyle Kamer that they're going to need a lot of work to catch up to Andrew Freenoj, especially on an intermediate track.
Well, let's talk about that next, right? We've done 4 different racetracks. We have had 4 different race winners. Our first intermediate track comes up next as we head to Chicago. The only other intermediate we'll have is the night race in Las Vegas in January to close out this championship. Listen, Chicago may not be on the calendar these days anymore, but it tends to be one of my favorite intermediates. I think it's a really fun track with these B cars, and presents again another new challenge that these drivers have yet to see this season.
Yeah, and looking at the rest of the schedule, of course, Rockingham coming up, another big challenge, New Hampshire, another big challenge, Talladega, and more. So there's still a lot of unique tracks coming up. The only similar racetrack we're really going to have is Chicagoland and Las Vegas, and then Talladega, basically the same as Daytona with the restriction plate track. So it's still a lot of uniqueness coming up, and a lot of curveballs going to be thrown at these drivers.
And surprisingly enough, we're almost halfway through this championship already. So we're looking forward to being back next week. Until then, that is it for us here tonight from Mid-Ohio. So on behalf of our entire team at RaceSpotTV, the folks behind the scenes, and everybody involved with RealSimRacing, for our sponsor, Sim Speed Shop, and of course, for our broadcast team tonight. For our producer, our Junior Kankipati downstairs, for Josh Lee and myself, Evan Pasoko. I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Matt Danson. He's back in RSR Victory Lane on a road course, and there is no shock there. We're back, though, next Monday night on December the 20th for the virtual Chicagoland Speedway. That race and every race of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Until next time, good night from Mid-Ohio, where Danson is back in Victory Lane.